Looks like construction of the new recording studio is going quite nicely. It sure was nice of all these people to help us.
It sure was, David. This'll be a very nice studio once work is done.
Yes, Donald, it'll be nice.
Wait, what's the issue? What's going on?
Oh, it's just, I've been looking over the listener feedback, and there have been some pretty harsh complaints that maybe we should listen to if we want the show to keep going forward. Which, we do if we're building a brand new studio, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. What are the complaints?
Mainly about our other characters. They tend to think that they're mere stereotypes and occasionally borderline offensive.
Stereotypes? Offensive? How could that be? Oh, hey, Luigi Alfredo, you can start welding the materials over there. Oh, the Dina Mozzarella, this is real hard work, but at least afterwards we'll all get a pizza pie and some spaghetti and the meatballs for our service. Yeah, it'll be nice, Luigi. Sorry, David, what were you saying?
That's what I'm saying. All these characters, they're just walking stereotypes.
I'd argue they're archetypes, personally, since we're writers.
The listeners don't seem to think so, though. They're complaining that we're misrepresenting cultures in the name of cheap laughs.
Sacre bleu, messieurs of the retweet. Building this studio sure is difficult. If only there could be some story cooking done to ease our labor.
If only, Gaston. If only.
Do I really need to say any more?
I guess I get your points, but I think it's just needless complaining. It's not like many of our fans are Italian or French. I feel like they'd have more of a right to complain if we were making fun of someone more like our average listener base.
Donald, where would you like these heavy building planks?
Set them over there, Stuart. Thanks for helping, by the way.
Don't you dare thank me! My ridiculous mother made me do this. She said if I didn't help you with building the new studio, I wouldn't be allowed to see the Batman in theaters. And I have to see that in theaters! That kind of dark, depressing, and twisted movie is what the superhero genre should be, rather than more of that childish Marvel twipe.
Of course. Just finish up your labor and you can go see your artsy, low-budget, independent French cinema masterpiece that is The Batman.
Did someone say French cinema? May I remind you of the glorious French art house films that is Le Mec avec tout à la cour.
Ah, for crying out loud, Gaston! That is not cinema! The Batman is, and Dune, and the Qual!
Of course, 14-year-old age lords do it.
Please, everyone get back to work. Anyways, David, you were saying?
I think my point has been made perfectly clear.
Okay, fine. So we poke a little fun at some national stereotypes and the mindset of some listeners of the show. Who cares, really? It's not like we're making fun of anyone important, like, for example, those who, valiantly serve our country.
Get those planks and steel beams, move faster, you pungent pieces of animal excrement! I've seen drunken beavers with oven mitts build better structures than this! Move your pathetic rumps or I'll dishonorably discharge a lot of you!
Sir, yes, sir! Move faster, I promise! Don't hurt me!
Mamma mia, I haven't seen such a fearsome work environment since we were under the rule of a Mussolini.
There is nothing such a good place of pièce à la bande of Cheval Blanc can fix. I shall prepare this story cooking kitchen.
Yay!
Alright, come on, David, have some fun!
This is ridiculous. These complaints are just gonna keep coming. Is that what you want?
Yeah, complaints happen all the time. The show is what it is. Besides, we usually stick to our own race and demographic with our characters. That's a line we'll never cross. If we made a stereotype of something beyond what we identify as, then that'd be problematic.
Ah! Look out!
I am Emperor Splazatrax, supreme ruler of the planet Zerkabog. Our micropositron scanners have calculated this planet in the Guzapag sector to be the point of origin for the interstellar EMP that crippled our civilization. This world shall be incinerated.
Not if we have anything to do with it, you olive-skinned space vermin! Soldiers, form defensive positions! We must protect the studio!
I'll look into my explosive meatballs and a boiling hot tomato sauce.
I'll get the stone hard loaves of fine French bread in my story kitchen.
I'll get my mommy! I want my mommy! I just wanted to see the Batman!
Die, Gruesome Pac-Mans! Die! Defend the studio! Defend it!
Oh, this is never gonna end. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show without a clause, without a subject, and without an object.
So this show is basically grammatically incorrect.
Very much so.
And incorrect in a multitude of other ways, I'd say.
Plenty of them.
But
obviously.
One thing we are not correct... Oh, I guess before we get into the standard stuff, I guess we'll just say, it's been a while. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, I'll talk about some of the things that I've been doing in just a little bit. But yeah, things are going okay.
Yeah.
I'm in a good place. Big thank you to Christina Eilert for taking over the guest host role for the Witties, so I didn't have to be reluctantly dragged along for them.
You did have one little part, though. Nominee.
Oh, that's right.
And look, he says he wasn't there, but literally we had him tied up in a chair while we were recording, so we put the microphone to him and be like, nominee. We had him at gunpoint too.
We haven't done the button thing such that it's like, oh yeah, push the button for the nominee effect yet.
Yeah. So, and also if you hear difference in audio quality,
if you want to help us get to that level, check us out on Patreon.
Yes, because the studio that we were at, it closed down.
Yeah, that's the other reason it's been a while, because we finally, we didn't have to put everything on the schedule, and by not having to put things on a schedule, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
We realized how much we procrastinate. It's like, we could do it, or we could do it later.
Or we could just choose not to do it right now.
Yeah, it's not like we get that much listener feedback from it, wink, wink.
And to be fair, because the guest host's situation as well, Christina, gracious enough to give her time to record, but her time is almost more limited than mine.
Yes, exactly. So that's why there's a big gap between episodes 3 and 4. So
nothing to do with pregnancy. Because
it wasn't quite that long.
You said 3 and 4.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
And for more reference on that, no, I'm kidding. Anyway.
All right. Well,
yeah. How are you, to turn it back around?
I'm pretty happy now, because since I'm not paying monthly for a studio anymore, this show is making a profit.
Woo! Well, and Paleobites too.
Yeah, the Wayne Paleobites, the Matthew Donald brand is a profitable venture. Well, at least the podcast division. I did spend $300 on editor and another $500 on. I spent hundreds of dollars on editor and hundreds of dollars on Illustrator. For my books.
Hey, that's important progress too. We're obviously not at the point where this is like fully in the black, but if you'd like to check out the stuff that he does have out there, hey, go to Amazon and look at Megazoic.
Or just go to my website at MatthewDonaldCreator.com, because there's like a hub for all of that. Anyways, ding.
Yes. Anyways.
But yeah, so although I guess the nice thing about having to pay for all this with my business card is that I get so much money for tax write-offs. It's tax season, guys.
Yeah,
I'm an adult.
A reminder. And for what
I'm gonna get a tax refund.
I'm basically not gonna have to pay taxes because I didn't make enough. But anyway, for what it's worth, paying for our own equipment,
it's a big one-time purchase. And
it is a big one. Yeah, absolutely.
So
we don't have to keep paying for it. So it will pay for itself eventually. And we have the equipment. We can do whatever the heck we want with it.
And we can record whenever we want and wherever we want.
As long as we can figure out, coordination for whoever is along with Donald, because he's the one who got the equipment. I just tag along.
This is my it's Matthew Donald Patreon. So, you are the official co-host, but you are still the co-host. Always the co-host, never the host. Except for Nerds Are Us, which
can I make a joke about 27 podcasts or something?
Sure, yeah. 27 podcasts. That's about how many I listen to every week.
That's you, not me.
Vast majority of them Australian. Anyways, what will we rip off from this month? David, since it's been a while, you go first.
All right, I'll take the ball and go with that. I've spent a whole ton of time watching Marvel stamped stuff because of the mass exodus that just occurred from Netflix. But hey, just in time for them to resurface on Disney Plus.
It's almost like you didn't really have to, binge as hard as you did.
And I did it anyway. If there's a lesson to take away from the shows, it's less about content and simply having the time pressure of a deadline. It can move mountains, believe you me.
I do believe you.
Much at the sacrifice of my sleep, probably health, and certainly other things that I should have actually
Who needs sleep? You are 30 now. So, I was going to say you're 29, but nope,
Yeah,
not anymore.
I can't make that joke anymore.
Nope.
So the proper response, apparently, is to make my things scarce and limited time only.
Yes. So you're not going to ramble as you do.
Joking answer aside. Joking answer aside, though, I'm just about done with a really recent show called Kamen Rider 01. And I'm finding out that the producer team really impinged their own desires on the story that ended up altering the product from the writer's original version.
Ooh.
Or vision, excuse me.
Yes,
That's
yes.
the word I was trying to say. You have to appease those producers, folks, lest they stop backing your product at all.
The executives can meddle however they choose, unfortunately.
And while this is a diversion from my usual right for you and to heck with the rest attitude, I need to note that some of this particular case was also pandemic influenced.
Yes, and also, this is a lot bigger than most of our audience, I'm assuming, unless, hey, we called out Brandon Sanderson, so maybe he's a listener.
Maybe he is.
But, so.
But for what it's worth, I mean, there was a hiatus influenced by COVID-19, and because of that, they lost crucial time that would have, given story beats a little bit more space.
Right.
Such that, they kind of had to slapdash the end together and change some things.
Mm-hmm.
But at least it was all produced. I mean, it could have been, you know what? This is not happening.
Scrap! Down the toilets!
So,
In the bin!
yeah. Lastly, I am really enjoying the show Runaways.
Oh, yes.
A Hulu original, but it is available on Disney Plus because Marvel. Plenty
Isn't
of things.
it technically in the MCU, but kind of in that gray area?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Along with, Cloak and Dagger and stuff like that.
So...
Plenty of things that I'm looking at with raised eyebrows in this one. Delightful cast, even though it's actually sizable.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest inspiration it provided to me is taking the fish out of water concept and using it somewhere.
Ooh.
These kids, runaways, are...
They run away.
Yeah, from rich families. And they're out on the street, and all of a sudden it's just holy crap, how do we survive when we can't just hail an Uber?
First world problems.
Exactly.
Send support to Ukraine, listeners. I
There's
shouldn't joke about. Let's say that in a joking manner. That's very serious. But
also there's a huge theme in this show of being better than our parents for reasons that cause them to run away. But the plot is forcing the titular characters to make worse and worse decisions on a slippery slope.
right.
Oh, I want to use that somewhere if I can.
A lot of problems people have, if your parents treat you badly, and a lot of people might be at first, I'm not going to treat my kids that way, and they end up inadvertently treating their kids exactly that way. So...
Well, I mean, there's a lot about child raising that it changes fundamentally what you know about yourself and how you act and what's the model you have about parenting.
Right.
Your own.
Exactly. Well, as someone who isn't planning on having kids currently, we'll just have to find out in the next life, because I'm going to reincarnate. That's my plan.
That's your plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Better be something
Start-
good.
Life is so good, might as well just start it all over again, am I right?
I was about to make the joke. There's a comedian who's ran into some guy who is atheist and believed in reincarnation for whatever combination, how that's possible. I'm not
Your
quite sure.
energies
But
get
but
sucked into the ground.
but the comedian was saying, "Well, I hope you get reincarnated as a tree that is cut down and turned into pages of the Bible."
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. They're still printing Bibles too. Oh, wait, hey. Isn't that weird thin paper? I guess it's still made from tree bark, but
I have no
it's
idea.
that weird because it's so big. You can't just use normal book paper for it.
I don't know. I've never really paid any attention to how Bibles are made.
I grew up more religious. Well, no, you grew up religious too. I
I did, but that doesn't mean I paid attention to
This
that.
is really, really thin pages, and the big books have to minimize, still have 1,000 pages in something a little bit smaller. So,
You know more about that because you're currently trying to publish another book.
anyways,
But what about you? What are you going to rip off from this month?
another book, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
You like my joke, right? I watched the new Uncharted movie that came out last month.
I am not surprised that you did this.
Yeah, it's a movie, but it's based off a video game
that you really love.
Yeah,
so-
exactly. And as a big Uncharted fan, someone who really loves the games, I was skeptical about the casting. Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as Victor Sullivan. not only do they look nothing like the characters,
Well, I mean, adaptation take liberties, but
I guess they know they're trying to make them younger, to be fair. But they didn't seem to have the right charisma and character traits for them either. Then I watched the movie, and they proved me wrong. Like, they really proved me wrong. Tom Holland was so much like a younger Nathan Drake, and definitely not like another Peter Parker like I feared.
okay.
He did a really good job acting like another character, more like Nathan Drake. And Mark Wahlberg's general smugness and snark worked really well as a younger Sullivan. Plus, he gets the mustache at the end, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Got to make it accurate to the
Yeah,
video
exactly.
games.
Exactly. Then suddenly I understood why they casted these characters, these people as these two characters. Yes, they don't look the part, but they captured their essence. And since they're both bigger stars, they put more butts in seats
That is probably the biggest thing.
than others that might have looked for the part but were less famous. That's why they did it. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
but they did a really good job. I was pleasantly surprised.
Better that than unpleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be a surprise really based on what I was. I was like, oh, that's what I
No,
expected.
you could have been unpleasantly surprised. It could have been even worse.
It'd have to be truly. No, well, I didn't think it would be that bad.
That had to be truly fetid for that to work.
Yeah, exactly. So, but basically, you can make some necessary alterations to an adaptation of your work to make it work better in another medium, as long as you still respect the essence of the original, which I think this movie did quite well. And I guess that's something I can keep in mind if I ever get around to writing a Megazoic script that I've been threatening for quite a while. So,
I don't think threatening is the right word. I think you're just like waiting to capitalize on the dream.
I know, but some part of me is just like, if the dream happens, it's like, oh, we're getting a movie right. So I'm like, oh, cool, I have a script.
I'm going to do it myself. It's already done.
Yeah, it's already done. Give this a look, please.
Take my word for it. I know this story better than anyone.
Alright. But plus the ending action scene is so Uncharted. Like, because they're looking for these ships that Magellan lost that had a bunch of gold on them.
Sure.
And they're in this cave, they find them. And this cave has a slight opening up top. It's like in a jungle or whatever. It's in the Philippines. And then they find them, and then the bad guys find them. And they're like, wait a minute, how are the bad guys going to take these out? And so then suddenly 2 military-grade helicopters come in, drop cables down, and they lift the whole ship's up into the air. It kind of looks like something out of Peter Pan, honestly. With these flying, except if they're not flying
I was about
on the
to
road.
say, if it's Peter Pan, you don't see the cables connected to a military-grade helicopter.
Just the fact that these galleons are just flying. And then they're fighting on the ships, they're smashing it. Like, there's one part where they're scraping on the there's no way these ships would have been intact for this long.
Probably not.
But, at one point, Nathan Drake fires a cannon on one of them onto one of the helicopters.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh my god, it's so great.
Good Gord.
It's so good.
I'm sure.
It's just something that could have come straight from the games. The games are known for those big set pieces.
That's fair.
So,
That's fair.
But speaking of
Well,
sets,
I was gonna say that.
of course you ruined my segue. Sorry,
I was thinking about this while you were finishing.
Okay.
Of course, Uncharted has its own unique aesthetic to it, right?
Of course. I come up with a segue and you're like, wait, hold on. Let's do my segue.
I've been sitting on this one since you started talking about Uncharted.
to be fair, you're right. Neither of us realized the other one. Okay. So, okay.
But it has a unique aesthetic to it.
And speaking of
you
unique
might
aesthetics.
you might say it kind of qualifies as a certain kind of punk.
Yeah, as I say, Nathan Drake's a bit of a punk, a bit of a rebel, would you say?
Okay, that's what you're going for.
And
speaking of which...
Nothing cybernetic I can think of here. Nothing...
No, there's... Unless the 16th century galleons have this amazing technology on them.
Wait, what? PlayStation. These are PlayStation games. And in fact, the beginning of the movie had a whole PlayStation Productions, which showed a bunch of PlayStation characters, including Ratchet and Clank, by the way.
Oh, cool.
It was nice to see Ratchet and Clank in the theaters, because I didn't see the Ratchet and Clank
I was
movie.
about to say, you didn't see the movie, yeah.
That was in theaters for a moment before. So...
Hey, something cyber, and speaking of that...
Yes, so it's like the cybernetic wonder that was the PlayStation 3/4. So we're talking about cyberpunk stories. In this set, though, we're discussing the various types of punk stories.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, and obviously, is treasure punk a thing? I don't honestly know, because the definition of how we talk about punk is kind of changed over the years.
I don't think on its own inherently. I mean, it could be, because that kind of lumps Indiana Jones, also Uncharted, and National
Treasure together as well.
Yeah, so.
But I'd say, though,
I've seen
it's hard for that to be punk, because it's just kind of like being fantastic with adventure that could otherwise take place in real life.
I've heard some people classify Indiana Jones as diesel punk just because it takes place at the time, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like, there's not really any new technology.
I guess.
Like,
This is a preliminary question. Is the setting the most important thing? Like, the time it takes place the most important thing for being punk or not? And I'm not sure that
it depends on the punk, but we'll get to that as we go on.
All right, fair enough.
So, and I've been writing most of these stuff here, most of these intros here, and that's why you're answering the questions first, because I'm the one.
Makes sense. I feel you.
So, starting with the originator of the concept of punk stories, we'll start with that, and then a few more well-known ones, or one
more.
Well, we originally had more, and then I was like, wait a minute, this one's not.
Wait a
common.
second, that doesn't work.
That's why, by the way, this set is gonna be 3 episodes.
Yeah,
So-
we're gonna actually only do a 3 episodes at this time around. In the hopes that we'll get to recording sooner and get back on the train
Yes,
again.
hopefully get the
Speaking
schedule.
of trains.
Yeah, there is a train in Uncharted. So, not the movie, but in one of the games. So
Fair enough.
So one well-known one, and then ending the list with a whole grab bag of a bunch of obscure ones. Sure. But now, what is punk exactly, and how to get this name? In 1980s, the very first of these genres was named, it being cyberpunk. Authors like William Gibson and Bruce Sterling wrote dystopian novels set in the not-too-distant future, exploring authoritarian governments using modern technology like the global datasphere and invasive cybernetic body modifications.
Ooh, jeez.
To rule a dark and grimy world. Inevitably, the heroes of these stories were survivors of this world, marginalized and rebellious to the oppressions of their city, i.e., punks.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And thus, the genre of cyberpunk was born.
All right. That was already a lesson to me. So learners, listeners.
I mean, they
are
are
learning
learners
something
in a way. They're students. There are students, and we're your teachers, your professors.
Oh God. No pressure there. Jeez.
You should call me Professor Donald.
Professor Boyle.
No, not Boyle, not Doyle, not Buildings Ramon.
Not Buildings Ramon. Definitely not him.
He's still rotting in jail. Anyway. Alright. So the genre of cyberpunk is best exemplified since there's a lot of books for it, but since there's such a visual aesthetic to it, there are movies about it that are pretty common, like Blade Runner, RoboCop, The Matrix, Total Recall, the Tron duology,
Fair enough.
other stuff like that.
I was going to say there's also the anime Evangelion, if you've ever heard of that.
And also Ghosts in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell.
Akira.
Yeah.
Video games like Deus Ex and obviously Cyberpunk 2077.
Gee, it's right in the name.
I wonder what year it takes place in.
Gee, could it be in the world of Timberborn? No, I'm just kidding. They don't get that reference, so never mind.
Timberborn. Yeah, that's a different type of
That
punk
is-
that we'll get to in the later episode.
We may throw it into the last episode.
Okay, and literature that predates the term but fits the definition, like 1984,
Well, dystopia I get. I don't know about cyber, though.
Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, and authors like Philip K.
Bradbury.
Dick, who wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which was adapted into the Blade Runner movie.
The Blade Runner.
The Blade Runner movie, I apologize.
Yeah.
Adapted into the Blade Runner movie.
Ray Bradbury stories, a lot of science fiction stuff. If it includes that dystopian element, I think they would qualify here.
Yeah,
very nicely,
exactly.
too.
Now, based on all these examples, what do you think are the common elements that make this work? You know.
Generally, I think it comes from a deep-seated dissatisfaction with the state of affairs.
Makes sense.
The environment is typically coded as something the authors themselves don't enjoy about the world they live in, clothed in such a way to add fascinating design and an overemphasis on the technology as a way to, gloss past the issue?
Right.
Thus, its gloomy feeling. Sure, the sci-fi-like elements are quite inventive and push the envelope on visual effects, but look beneath that and you find the most important part about the cyberpunk genre. Dystopia.
Yes. This isn't. No one's having a good time.
But some really neat visuals are great icing if you feel like eating this cake.
The viewers or the readers are having a good time. So.
Yeah. Think about how all these cars can run and give light trails in the air. Amazing, right? Just don't look at the homeless people. Anyway.
Well, and boy, they are everywhere. So. Yeah, well, I think one of the things that make it, the common elements that make it work, sort of like what you were saying, is like the cynicism, particularly towards the government.
Fair enough.
A sense of rebellion, hence the punk moniker. Cybernetic body modifications for some reason. And rain. lots and lots of rain. I remember when some of the promotional screenshots for Cyberpunk 2077 came out and showed the city on a bright, sunny day. People were like, What? Where's the rain? This isn't Cyberpunk.
I need the darkness.
Where's the darkness? But, there's a reason that usually has that other than how it looks. Like, it portrays the gloomy and oppressive atmosphere most Cyberpunk stories have. Like, and also, it's depending on, like, how economically, or not, environmentally sound this world is. It makes sense to be gloomy all the time.
Yeah.
All the smoke.
I mean, the sacrifice that we make for having technological progress would be theoretically more emissions, theoretically more pollution, right?
So smog, grime, acid rain, probably.
What a lovely cycle.
I want to live there.
God.
I'd be one of the only cyberpunk comedians. I'd be in.
To watch you just land in a world where nobody remembered how to laugh because it had just been drummed out of them by their lives.
Well, really happened.
This is the next isekai, by the way.
Well, you know what I would
manga fans.
What I would also do. I don't get the reference, but
isekai literally means different world.
Oh, okay.
Like the kanji is different world from our own.
I get you.
So
you and your Japanese,
it's a new phenomenon. Well, recent phenomenons, particularly in manga and anime as well.
I get you. Okay. But no, what I was going to say is what would happen. I'd get up on stage, everyone would be all gloomy, and I'd make jokes that, of course, no one would laugh at. We'd be like, so how about that government, huh? And then the government would come in and kill me.
One night only, folks!
Because that's all I got! Probably only 5 minutes. No.
They're sending their assassins.
And I'm assuming like those assassins might be robotic in nature. And speaking of the technology, how rigorous do you think that do you need to have the technology or science be in the world if you're writing cyberpunk? Like, would it still feel the same if you don't painstakingly explain how everything works or aim for so-called hard science in your fiction, in your science fiction, if you will?
Donald will probably laugh because honestly, the tech is mostly there to offer a sacrifice at the altar of the god of cool.
The nice thing about the god of cool is he doesn't need sacrifices. He will happily bless it upon you.
Sure, it looks spectacular and it challenges conventional wisdom, but because the story isn't usually about how the tech works when you boil it down, it probably could be softer science compared to perfectly accurate spaceship physics.
Well, I'm assuming most cyberpunk isn't really in space, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, I'm just saying as a hard science example.
Yeah.
I think it would feel the same, even sans the details, how it affects the user or the world that the technology is used in.
Exactly. I think it's more about like what the technology does, not how it works. Like, I don't necessarily think you need to explain how the technology works too well unless it involves like how it affects the mind and the body. Like, as well, and I don't even know if this is considered really technology. I guess it kind of is. But a lot of cyberpunk tends to use like drugs. Like, sort of mind-altering sort of substance. Like, an example I forgot, I guess it's based on a Philip K. Dick short story called A Scanner Darkly. It was a rotoscoped movie back in the day, but it's based off of, something about, like, these drugs that, like, kind of make you perceive reality differently. That's one of the reasons why they made that movie rotoscoped. To kind of show, like, how weird everything is, and also how, when he goes under, they can add more inventive sort of visuals to it. So,
well, I mean, the biggest thing that Cyberpunk accomplishes is casting it in some future that's not yet come, but allows visual effects to really be the star of the show.
Well, the thing about Cyberpunk, and this is why, honestly, like, it's also meant more of as a warning than anything. And it's not yet come, but it might be dangerously close.
It is true.
Like, honestly, when I was describing Cyberpunk earlier, like, most of this applies to today, except for the body modification technology. Sorry.
Well, and I mean,
it's not as in the U.S. It's not near as
organ
authoritarian.
Transplants, replacing limbs. That's stuff that already happens. It's not far to say.
But it doesn't like go into your brain.
Not yet.
Yeah. So.
You're right.
So for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought that cyborg meant anything with like robotic parts or anything like, or not robotic, just like artificial parts. I didn't realize that cyborg specifically involves the brain. You have to have pieces from the brain missing and replace it with cybernetic stuff rather than just a robot arm.
Just being like robotic, have a robotic joint because your arm came off or whatever.
Although there are some real life quote unquote cyborgs in that fit definition that have built their arms out of Lego.
That's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, I hope they can connect to with their brain. There is that Mindstorm sort of technology. I don't know if they can connect to your brain, but imagine a robot arm you could build with Lego. You can just do whatever you want with it. Hold on, guys. I'm going to chop off my limb right now.
Let me
Sorry.
go find this out. And after your bloody murder.
God! Oh, sorry. That was just a paper cut. What were we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost false to call it science, I think, because it's simply like, well, I mean, it is their life. It is their life, and I don't know how much it really delves into science, but because it doesn't delve into science as the story, that's not the feature. It's just a consequence.
It's meant to serve the narrative. Like it's like you're not really explaining how the technology works. Like, how does it, like, what you're really supposed to explore with the technology is how does it oppress? How does it alter you physically or mentally? Like, those things, what the technology does, are more important in the terms of technology in Cyberpunk, not the science behind it.
Right.
But while this genre is noted for its narrative themes and visual style, what do you think is more important? Like, if one of these two elements were completely removed, which one would remove the cyberpunk?
Definitely the former.
Ooh, I disagree, but let's see what you got.
There's a distinct difference between coating something in drab just to make it feel cyberpunk if the vitriol isn't there, versus legitimately oozing with that disturbed notion that the world is fundamentally broken, just with pretty lights and gizmos.
Yes, of course.
I mean, our world is far from perfect, which is part of the motivation for creators to keep dressing up the worst elements in this way. Mm-hmm. The dangerously close future,
yes,
rather than so far flung that the technology doesn't make any sense because it doesn't need to make any sense at all. Mm-hmm. Their omission makes it feel like you have a fixation on the tech, but none of the actual, like, gumption behind Cyberpunk. So the style itself is secondary.
See, here's why I disagree. Now, granted, if you have just the aesthetic and not the cynicism or any of the oppressive themes behind it, it's not good cyberpunk. But I argue it's still cyberpunk, just very shallow cyberpunk, because an oppressive sort of society, like cynical and all that stuff. You know what else that describes? Game of Thrones. Is that cyberpunk to you?
Oh, heck no. But that's not cyber at all.
That's what I'm saying. You're removing one of them.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that punk
You're
itself.
You're removing either the technology or the narrative. You're removing the visual style or the narrative style. That's what I'm saying. So.
But I think you're equating cyberpunk as the only kind of punk that has this oppression.
No, it's not. No, that's the thing. That's why I'm saying it's not. Other punks do. That's why I think.
So Game of Thrones, by your estimation, is still punk-y, but
it's not
definitely
cyberpunk.
Not cyber.
Because the thing that removes the cyberpunk is the cyber. I think removing the narrative themes and cynicism, but keeping the aesthetic will still make the story cyberpunk. Just not, like I said, it's very shallow. But if you keep the cynicism, themes of oppression or rebellion, but have it in like a fantasy world like Game of Thrones, it's no longer cyberpunk. It's just a cynical fantasy.
But if you don't have any of the like oppressive qualities that build up this punky world, it's simply decorated whatever.
Yes, so what I'm saying is, like, in terms of if you're removing either the visual style of cyberpunk or the narrative style of cyberpunk, if you keep the visual style, it's still cyberpunk. If you get rid of it, it's no longer cyberpunk.
So if you get rid of the visuals, it is
not cyberpunk.
Not cyberpunk, but if you get rid of the narrative themes, it could be.
Yes, it's saying. Again, not very good cyberpunk. But that's why I disagree. So.
All right, fair enough.
But hey, we're two different people. We're not just one person putting up a voice.
Here, let me do a podcast with myself.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yes, you had everything right. I have nothing to add.
Well, actually.
If it were me doing it,
I don't think I've said this on the show before, but I've joked that, like, you know, like how in Banjo-Kazooie, all the animals, you know, like like the walrus, like, and then that's like, that's always like sometimes I've heard people ponder the question, what would your Banjo-Kazooie noise be? And yours, I think, would be well. I don't know what mine would be, but it's probably
like, good gravy, man.
Probably more like my girly laugh. Like,
We're not quite there, but apparently we're on the Ritwit After Dark path.
I mean, looking
today.
outside, but
I can't see anything outside.
it's
because
8:30 p.m. It's dark out there. So, all right. What would you personally like writing about this genre? Either elements of it or the whole thing.
Frankly, I'm not the writer for Cyberpunk.
Well, neither am I. I'm still going to give it my all, but what do you have to say?
Am I mad about certain things in the world? Sure. But not to the degree where I invent fancy drop cloths of technology to paint on fancy glowing circles.
You are famously a fence sitter. So,
But again, that comes from my middle of the issue disposition.
like, it would be a price of technology. You'd be like, well, actually, to play devil's advocate, this technology's kind of cool,
The technology's cool. Pay no attention to the oppression.
Look at all these drugs we can take.
Plus, while there's no need to be detailed about how the tech works, I'm not clever enough to find new uses of it that would really sing in such a setting, and that feels like I wouldn't make a story that's enjoyable, either on deep or even a shallow appreciation for that reason.
I suppose that's true, yeah.
But I most appreciate how it encourages advancing tech levels in the setting.
Right.
Creators who are passionate enough about the issues to pick on them while simultaneously pushing the envelope of what's possible with technology are worthy of my respect.
That makes sense. For me, I'm a sucker for fancy technology, particularly creative uses of it.
All right.
Cyberpunk is full of that, although it does often lead into the bit of body horror with the cybernetic implants and other biomodifications, which, is a bit icky.
Yeah, especially if you're squeamish.
Oh, I'm very squeamish. A girl I'm sort of seeing right now, she loves those body horror movies.
Ugh.
Guess who's gonna have to watch a few of those?
You may find you enjoy them more than you think.
As long
I
as
just
it's-
don't think I do.
Yeah. Anyways, but plus rebellion is a fun theme to write about, particularly if they're cool rebels with punk hair and weird outfits.
I mean, in general, the idea of rebellion is not far from anyone's mind.
Exactly, but speaking of rebellion, Cyberpunk is a good genre to really write about diversity. Since we unfortunately still live in an oppressive world that tries to downplay LGBTQ plus people, having a world built on rebellion means that people can be exactly who they want to be, openly and proudly.
And there's
rebelling.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. In the Cyberpunk 2077 game, the character creator allows full customization of your body, regardless of your gender. You want to be female and have a full hog? Go
Have
for
the
it!
full hog!
Go for it! Transgender people in particular are quite common in this genre, so...
Yeah. That's before you even get into the crazy dyes and stuff, too. Although, to be fair, I might be thinking about other, punk examples that don't really fall into cyberpunk. So, I think we cap it here and get into those topics later on,
Yes,
too.
exactly. So that is it for this week. A huge thank you to all our patrons so far. Contact us at mattd@matthewdonaldcreator.com for your questions
Yes.
to either co-host.
Hey, if you're going to specify one of us, David or Donald, would be great, because obviously Matt D is not unique.
Also, I should probably specify that our Patreon is patreon.com/MatthewDonald.
Yeah,
So-
that'd be helpful, too.
And I say our Patreon because even though it has my name, you still get a
I
percentage.
do get some support from that as well.
Yes.
So we appreciate it.
For our other podcast.
Yeah.
So I'll say mine here in a second. I
Sure,
guess.
yeah.
You
I
go first.
Yeah, I recently started a podcast. It's called Nerds Are Us, and if you want to follow me personally, you can check out the Nerds Are Us Discord server. We will have a link in the description.
Yes.
And go listen to that podcast too, because I have a fun time making it.
Yeah.
But Donald also has another podcast
Yes.
as well.
Paleo Bites. I mean, I've talked about it on the show before. I don't
Right.
feel like I need to plug it every time.
Nah,
Yeah.
probably not.
Also gets way more downloads than this one. So that's why I plug the Rit one in every episode of Paleo Bites. So it's just more mainstream.
But
I
as
guess.
far as personal stuff, or your Matthew Donald
Yes.
creator brand,
If
you
you
can
wanna
also
fo-
find that.
Yeah, follow me personally at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because that's how many degrees wide I can open my mouth. I'm a real
Whoa.
freaking nature. See, look.
That's big. That is pretty big.
Ah!
Please stop. That's gross.
Ah!
Until next time, we come back with something punky for you.
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David. Keep on ridding the good writ.
Riding the good right.
And we'll see you next time.
Ah!
Stop it!
Did someone say French cinema? May I remind you of the glorious French art house films, that is, Le Mec avec Pou de la Cour.
Ah, for crying out loud, Gaston! That is not cinema! The Batman is! And Dune! And the Qual!
Of course, the 14-year-old edgelords do it.